Welcome to Packmates, a podcast about Magic the Gathering Limited, where we take a deep dive into the current limited format. The Packmates are a group of nice card sharks that love drafting, hanging out, and going to F&M. Don't forget to check out our socials and join our Discord community. The links are in the descriptions. And I'm Andrew, the one-man wolf pack this week. And I'm part of the Packmates. Now, so this week, the other guys are actually at the Pro Tour doing some drafting, doing some sealeds over there, and putting to work all the great stuff that we talk about every week. So hopefully they're doing well right now. Alrighty. Well, this week I want to talk about some of the stuff that's actually been going on at the Pro Tour. Alrighty. So I guess I'll take it away. So this weekend was Pro Tour March of the Machines. And so there was a draft portion. It's a split format. So they did standard and then they did draft. And so I kind of wanted to highlight that this week. You know, I wasn't able to go to the Pro Tour with the other guys. I had some work obligations that I had to take care of. And so they're out there having some fun. So I'm out here looking at the data and seeing what kind of happened there. There were 3 players that had a perfect score. It was actually, so they went 6-0 in draft and had the perfect draft records. That was LSV, Brett Voss, Tom Kessler, LSV being the famous Luis Scott Vargas of Limited Resources and a Pro Tour Hall of Famer with one of the more impressive records in Magic history. Looking at their decks here, we see a blue-black, a blue-white, blue-black, blue-white, black-red, and 3-color Sultai, and that would be black, blue, and green. So what's a common thread here, people? 1, 2, 3, blue. 5 out of the 6 decks featured blue, and then we also see that black was kind of prominently featured in quite a few of the decks as well, 4 out of the 3. And so we're seeing that the top drafters in this format were actually really leaning towards that blue wanting to be in their deck. Look at Tom Kessler's. He had this really kind of sweet Sultai deck, and it featured, 2 Halo Forgers, and so you get that nice value. That guy is just so strong right now, given how prevalent the removal has been in this set, and in this particular set, in his draft deck, he actually had a pile-on. So that's got to be so good when you're convoking that thing out with this. You convoke it out, get the Halo Forger, get it back. And so that's just pretty good. You're getting all that value off that Surveil. Also something that we kind of see in here, he was splashing the green for the Invasion of Lorwyn. That's the battle, the 6-cost battle. It's 4 colorless, a black and a green to give -X/-X equal to the lands that you control. And then you get to flip it and get the creature on the other side. And so you're getting more removal here, more removal. He's got a bit more of a smaller to the ground side of this deck as well. Order of the Mirror. That's the flip guy, the 3/3 knight that flips. It's a 2/1 on its first side. It's a 1 colorless and a blue. And then we get Captive Weird, the 1/3 defender creature. And then for 3 and a Phyrexian red, you can transform it into a 3/3, flip the top card of your deck, and get to play that card until the end of turn, which is pretty sweet. It's kind of interesting here when you see these. He has a very interesting, we really need a lot of removal in this set, is what we're kind of seeing as time has gone on here. And he actually has a disturbing conversion in here, and that is the 1 colorless, 1 blue flash enchant creature aura. When disturbing conversion enters the battlefield, you get to mill 2 cards, and your opponent mills 2 cards as well. And the enchanted creature gets a -X/-O, where X is a number of cards in its controller's graveyard. So it's mattering, if you put it on your creature, it matters about your graveyard. If you put it on their creature, it matters about their graveyard. Some of the more interesting things that I've been kind of seeing that I kind of like is we see this Zarek Strobe Knight. We had talked about it a little bit last week, and I'm thinking this guy, I've been seeing him more and more in action, and I've been really liking what I've seen. It's kind of easy to double spell with this guy, and plus he vigilances, so you're not choosing if you had to double spell that turn, or if you were able to double spell that turn, I should say. you don't really have to choose between attacking or making the 2/2 knight. So this is the Xerax Strobe Blade is actually, it's a 2 colorless, 1 blue for a flying vigilance human knight that taps to create a 2/2 blue knight with a vigilance, and it's a token, and you can only do this if you've only played 2 or more spells this turn, and so that comes up pretty big with this Halo Forger, of course. And so it's kind of interesting. We were talking about the cycle guys, and here we go again. Last week we'd spoke about maybe they weren't the best, but in this deck, you can really tell that this guy kind of really leaned into it. Tom Kessler did. He's got 2 Gloom Fangs, and that's the 5/5 Swamp Cycler that backs up 2 when it enters the battlefield. And he's got a Tidal Terror and a Timberland Ancient, 6/5, and that's the Reach Trample guy. And then, of course, the Tidal Terror. I had said it before, but the Tidal Terror is the one that when it attacks, you may tap 2 untapped creatures. And then if you do, it gets unblockable until the end of the turn, and it's island cycling. So that's 2 colorless. You get to discard this and search for an island from your deck. And so here we go. We've got 4 land searchers, and I'm pretty sure that's really because this guy's stretching out to go to the 3 colors. It's kind of neat. He has the 3 Thornwood Falls in his mana base. He's playing 17 lands. I think we've been talking about that quite a bit as well, that the 17 lands seems to be the more prevalent, like we're needing to do that. Last week, Ryan was talking about some of the stats and just really kind of going up on that land count. It's been such a different kind of environment than we've had in the last few sets where, we were going down to 15 lands, maybe in Roby's case, he was going down to 14 lands. Don't know if I'd go quite that far, but it was something else. But, we were able to get away with that, especially in like Brothers War and 1 to a certain extent as well. And so this was kind of a cool thing. And then Tom's other deck was, and this was the sole deck that was not splashing blue or had any kind of blue in it, but it also had probably one of the better cards in the set, actually quite a few of the better cards in the set. This is something that I heard the commentary talk about quite a bit, was that this set, a lot of people feel that it's bomb heavy. I was one of those in particular as well. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. I wasn't really a big fan of the set. And the more I saw it over the weekend getting played, I'm sitting there, railbirding, kind of watching my Twitch stream and kind of shaking my fist at the air a little bit. But it is what it is. Just kind of old manning it a little bit. I'm just sitting there. I'm just like, bruh, come on, really? I'm seeing these decks that are just, full on just all rares, but it really wasn't what I saw on the streams. It was these really kind of sleek best cards. We're looking at all those 17 land data all the time. And so it's really just high impact cards here. But in this particular case of this Rakdos deck that Tom Kessler had, you really see there was quite a bit of bombs in here. He has the Eltai Primal Conqueror. That's the 7/7 dinosaur that when it enters the battlefield, each player keeps milling until they hit a non-land spell, and then you get to cast those for free. And then it flips over to an 11/11 Infect Indestructible. I win the game immediately on the spot kind of card. And so it was kind of interesting to see in this deck. Again, 17 lands, 11 swamps, 6 mountains. The Skittering Surveyor makes a play here as well. It's kind of our theme here, is we really like those kind of colorless guys that, I wasn't a big fan in the last set with the toxic guy that searched for a land, but it is whatever. Dune Mover, I'm glad not to see him anymore, but everybody was always talking about him, and I did understand that he was quite good. But here we go with Skittering Surveyor. I think this is a better successor to the toxic gentleman, Mr. Dune Mover. But here we also see quite a bit of removal, actually. You get that Invasion of Innistrad, the Flash, minus 13/13 to a creature, and then you get the Deadly Diversion, which is proven to be probably one of the best commons in the set. I think it's got like a crazy high improvement when drawn rate. I also see I see a Volcanic Spite in here, also one of the top, it's probably the top red common that you'll find on 17 lands. I mean, it's just the most premium things in here. Final Flourish, of course. But it's kind of interesting. This deck is more of like a mono black splashing red. You've got the double pip Eltai, but then you also have Judith, Furnace Furnace Rains is kind of interesting too. It's the tap and it's cost 2 colorless and a red. And then you get to gain control of a target creature. You get to untap it and gain haste whenever this creature deals combat damage to a battle or player. You get to create a treasure token. So it really only costs 2 if you get to connect. So you're probably more likely connecting, and then you're going to play your Scorn Battle Berserker and sack it, or, you're going to sack it to some of these other various things. This is actually more of a Rakdos sacrifice deck. He's got the completed Hunt Master, the 2/3 that for 1 colorless you can activate it and sacrifice another creature or artifact. And then you get to incubate 3. So you get to recycle these guys that you're stealing into Phyrexians for your side, which is kind of cool. I'm really liking this deck. If not a lot of, it's going to take a lot now to see these kind of decks that really get into that upper echelon that aren't blue. We've been noticing the trends being just the blue decks were kind of had a higher win percentage. And so it's good to see these kind of decks, this Rakdos deck, it's a little bit lower to the ground. He's got 2 Ichor Drinkers, on the lower end of the sides, actually Corrupted Conviction. So that's the kind of Village Rites card of the set. It's just really sleek creature removal on the top end. It's kind of interesting. The guys were kind of giving me a hard time about this Etched Host Doombringer last week, but here it makes an appearance in a deck that was 3-0 at a Pro Tour. The Doom Drinker is the 3/5 for 5. So it costs 4 colorless and 1 black. And when it enters the battlefield, the Etched Host Doombringer, you get to choose one of these 2 things. So you get to either target opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life, pretty good. Or you choose target battle and opponent is protecting, and then you remove 3 defense counters from it. Or you can put 3 defense counters on it to kind of defend your battles. And so I think that's kind of good. It's a little interaction with the battle. Sometimes it's really kind of tough. And I found where you just have a few more battles and you're kind of pecking at a few of them, trying to get through, or you have multiple guys in play. And so it's kind of hard to get those last couple battle points off there. And so this guy really does a good job of doing that. Plus he also seals the ground because at 3/5, not a lot of things can punch through that. And then again, we see the Gloomfang Marauder. That's the 5/5. Again, the swamp cycling with backup too. And so we get to see that. So that was kind of an interesting deck. When we look at Brett Voss's Azorius deck, we see right off the bat, Jin-Gitaxias, great card. If you get these bombs, you got to play them. But we also see this kind of Knights sub-theme as well with the Knight Aaron of Eros. We saw that card last week. A very good and strong card. We also see Protocol Knight, the Stunner. I say the Stunner because actually when it enters the battlefield, you get to tap target creature and opponent controls. And then if you control a knight yourself, you get to put a stun counter on that. So you get to give them an Austin 316 Stunner.
Oh, yeah! That's Austin! Stone Cold!
So it's a 3/4, which is also good stats for a 4 costing creature, the 3 colorless and blue. So you had 2 of those in here. And then we see probably one of the best blue commons in the set, Preening Champion. Known, it's a bird knight, so it fits in with the knight theme, which is great. But also it creates a 1/1 blue-red elemental creature token. No flying, just a little ground pounder, but you get a lot of value for 3. You get a 3/3 split in a couple different ways. You get the 2/2 flyer, and then you get the 1/1 ground pounder, which is just pretty darn good. But one of the all-star standouts in this deck that's going to really just catches my eye immediately is 3 Meeting of the Minds. My goodness. I mean, wow, that is insane in this deck. You've got a lot of little kind of guys that kind of get in the way, with these knights. You get them all kind of around the 2. You don't really get some 1-drop knights. But, man, that just pushes you to the end game here. And it gets to put a bunch of pressure on the board, as far as just like with the knights, you kind of just have more things on the board. It's a very kind of board-centric kind of deck. And so being able to kind of be on the defensive a little bit, or if, many of the knights have vigilance themselves. And so being able to just like smash in with a little bit of vigilance and then get a little bit extra value on that is just so good. So you get to keep the pressure going. Again, 17 lands. here we go again. Again, this set is a very aggressive kind of mid-rangey, I guess, Knights deck, but that 17 lands is just a must here. As far as removal goes in this, you have the cut short, which is really nice, and you have the aerial boost, which has been getting really good stats, actually. I've seen it come up quite a bit on 17 lands. It's really kind of piqued my interest how good that card may be. I think it's just that the extra Convoke on there, and it's that kind of surprise from white. You don't really see that too often. We're just holding up 2 creatures because they had vigilance, or they're kind of being a little bit more on the defensive, and then you get this. You just kind of get blown out by +2/+2 and flying. And so Mr. Voss's other deck that he played was Demure. And so this one was kind of a spicer. It actually had one of the cards that Ryan had this a couple weeks ago and was kind of trying to back up his opponent's creatures. But this guy has 2 Horobi's Death Whales in this deck. That's just so cool. It really makes that Wicked Slumber basically a destroy 2 creatures. It's something else in this deck. And then also he's kind of got a bomb in this deck as well with the Invasion of Fior. That's the siege that comes into play. And then you get to choose one or both. Destroy all legendary creatures or destroy all non-legendary creatures. So it's this full-on board wipe if you got it. And it costs 6 double pip black and 4. And then when it flips, honestly, I can't remember what it does on the other side because the first side is just so darn good. Again, we see the Ephemera's Dispersal. That's the bounce spell that surveils 2, and then it costs less if it's targeting an attacking creature. And so that's something else. Just tons of removal in this deck, actually. I'll count the removal out to Stasis Field, 2 Final Flourishings, the Ephemera's Dispersal, the Wicked Slumber. Again, keeping in mind that this is a Horobi's Death Whale deck. And so, the Aetherblade Agent is basically, you're going to trade that off. And then you've got the Halo Scab Charger, actually. That's the 4/4 that mills 2 cards, each player does, and then you get to put an instant or sorcery or battle from your graveyard on top of your deck. So I can only imagine just recycling that Invasion of Fior if you really stuff has gone completely awry. I mean, that could be something pretty good. This is a pretty sleek deck, and I can see why it definitely went 3-0. I mean, it just looks like a really solid deck. It's got 2 captive weirds to kind of cinch up the early game. Those are the 1/3s that flip into the 3/3 that lets you play caught off the top of your deck. And it's also got the Nezumi Informant, Shiba Cryptomancer, so that's to protect or it could be a removal spell with Horobi there, but it could also protect one of your other guys, provided that you don't have the Horobi out, of course. And then it has an Expedition Lookout. That's the 2/3 that when you have 8 or more cards in your graveyard, can't be blocked, which is kind of nice. Yeah, no, this is a real spicer of a deck, and this is kind of when I see my Demure decks, I really kind of want to see that. And then, of course, the big dog, the Hall of Famer, Luis Scott Vargas, out here with some Azorius. It's kind of interesting in his deck, and this is something that Marshall Sutcliffe, he was one of the commentators for the event, was talking about how the diversity of this format is so interesting that it's so bomb heavy, but yet you see a deck like this with Luis playing, 3 Knights of the New Coalition. It's just a 2/2 that makes a 2/2 when it comes into play. He's got Protocol Knight. These are commons. 2 Proconauts, 2 Preen Champions, 2 Sword-Worn Cavaliers, 2 Meeting of the Minds. It's just a bunch of commons here, It's kind of interesting. He's also got the Astral Wingspan. That's quite nice, actually. It's an uncommon, and that's the one that convokes. It costs 5, 4 colorless, and a blue. And you give target creature +2/+2 and flying, and then when it enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card, which is pretty nice. Just a bunch of commons, uncommons. He's got the Zerb Strobe Knight. We talked about that one a little bit earlier, and how kind of good that is that you just get to get both sides of that ability. The only rare I actually see in this deck is Chrome Host Seed Shark, although we do know how bomby that is. That it's just one of those ones. It's pretty incredible. For 3, 2 colorless and a blue, you get a 2/4 flyer. Phyrexian Shark, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get to incubate X, where X is that spell's mana value, so you're getting all kinds of good value. And it's got to be so good when you probably convoke that Meeting of the Minds, get a 4/4 Phyrexian off of that while drawing 2 cards is pretty sweet. He's got Surge of Salvation, which is kind of cool. Again, we see this like kind of a little bit of a hater card in the main board, but it's just so good. It's you and permanents you control gain hexproof, so it's you get to save your best guy. And then if you happen to if your opponent happens to be playing some Rakdos or has some red or black in their deck, you get to prevent all damage that black and red sources would deal to creatures and to you this turn. And I was watching the coverage and actually got to see Luis pilot his Demure deck in round 11 of the tournament. They had it on stream on Twitch. He was piloting this really kind of interesting deck. Demure, I guess Demure is not as interesting now. I think people have kind of come to the realization that Demure is just one of the more premier decks to get. But this is kind of a little bit of beat downy, a little bit of control. He's got a little bit of mix of knights. I'm not sure if he was pretty happy with his deck or not, but it's got just a lot of just kind of interesting. It's got 1-drops in this deck. I didn't think we'd see too many 1-drops here. But they're also very premium 1-drops at that. He's got the Ichor Drinker. It's the 1/1 for 1 black, lifelink. And then for 1 black, you get to exile Ichor Drinker from the graveyard. You get to incubate 2, and you can activate it only as a sorcery, which isn't too bad. He's got Omen Hawker. That's a 1/1 and 1 blue. It's a uncommon. And then for so the 1/1, and you get to tap it for you get to add a colorless and a blue, and you only get to spend that on activated abilities, which is kind of convenient because 2 is a number to what? Flip your incubate tokens. And so this guy's a cool just helper, enabler of that. You get that Eyes of Gataxis, and you're able to really just, have the Omen Hawker, Eyes of Gataxis, so now you're just drawing a card, making it 3/3. And it's a pretty good Saurus Packmate there. Kind of build your own there. This is just a sweet Demure deck. It really doesn't have very many rares. It has 1 rare. It's the Grafted Butcher here, and that's the 2/2 for 1 colorless and a black Phyrexian Samurai. And then when it enters the battlefield, Phyrexians you control gain menace until the end of turn. Other Phyrexians get +1/+1. And then for 4, which is 3 colorless and a black, you can sacrifice an artifact or creature to return the Grafted Butcher to the battlefield. Activate this ability only as a sorcery. And so, you get some cool Phyrexian value from that as well, because you have all these Phyrexians that he's got a couple of flip guys with the Aetherblade Agent, also with Blight Reaper Thalon, which we've said multiple times in this podcast have just been really, really good. But he's got some Phyrexian kind of synergy there. There's a couple of incubate tokens as well. So that Butcher probably did a lot of work. And I did see it do quite a bit of work when I was watching him play. He was playing against a player who was playing like a red-blue Convoke deck. It had 4 of the things that make 1/1 creatures. 2 1/1 creatures for 1 red and a colorless. And so I just saw Luis just really use the incremental advantage he got throughout this deck, with the meeting of the minds between the Eyes of Gataxis, putting on like an immense amount of pressure with a 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop kind of thing there. He was really able with the kind of light removal in this deck to kind of just get there. There were just times where the temporal cleansing just kind of felt like it ended the game, ephemeral dispersal or something like that. And so he made it really nice, but it wasn't any frills, it was just some guys and a little bit of removal, and it just gets there. He wasn't trying to make any haymakers because he didn't have the really good rares in this set or those kind of legendary creatures that you're looking for he just had just a stock, just really good curve consideration here. This is actually a little bit lower than the curve. We see 16 lands in this deck, the old 2/2 split here. And, 8 swamps, 8 islands here. And so it's very interesting, I didn't think a deck like this would really kind of contend. My kind of initial idea of the format was really that people were just going to get a bunch of bombs, and it was like who can throw the best haymakers. But here you see a deck, and here I saw, even when he was playing, just 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop removal spells along the way. a little bit of some light evasion with the menace on the grafted butcher was just good enough to get there. You know, the flyers of random stun counter just tapping their guy down to get some little more incremental advantage there. It was something else. It was really nice to see, and it really kind of changed my idea of the format. I may be changing my tune on this. Hopefully I get to draft it a little bit more. I'm going to be busy the next couple of weeks, so hopefully I get to grind out some matches on Arena, or maybe I'll go on to Moto a little bit and try my luck there. You know, Luis just did so darn well, and I hear him talking about it. I hear Marshall talking about it as well, just how diverse this format is, where you get that really nice experience of getting these incredible multiverse legends, and then you get these really just powerful rares in this set. And yet here we are with a deck that had one rare in it, and it's just going the distance and just manhandled this other deck there. I mean, it was incredible to see. You know, if you can look that up, I think it may be online. If they had it on Twitch, it's probably there. Check out that match. He plays it very well. You know, the one of the matches, it really kind of, the guy I think got stuck on a couple of lands. It was just unfortunate. And, you know, Luis just kind of gave him the business there. But no, it's kind of neat. And then Luis, of course, tweeted out, "I'm close to calling Mom." That's March of the Machines, my favorite draft set of all time. It's got incredible range, great gameplay. Well done, everyone who worked on this. And it's kind of crazy. It's like he said it's like top 4 of his top 10 draft sets ever. And that's like one of the pros who's been playing for quite a while. It really is a testament to this thing. You know, I may not have liked it, but I'm coming around on it quite a bit. Also, it doesn't hurt that one of my favorite color combinations is actually kind of viable. I'm really a big blue-green kind of fan there, and so I've been trying to draft that recently, and that's been kind of on my spectrum of, all right, let me check my 17 lands, see what's going on there. And, you know, it's been a lot of blue-green drafting and quick draft, and I did pretty well, you know, getting a lot of sixes there, and I think I finally actually broke through and finally got my first 7 wins. It was quick draft, so I don't really... You know, some people enjoy the quick draft. You know, that's where the Roby kind of system goes in there, where you really want to have that opening hand, because you really that's about all you get, and so you really got to evaluate your mulligans there. Luckily, the system in Arena kind of helps smooth that out. They have the little assist there, so sometimes you can kind of fudge the lands a little bit because you know you're getting assisted there. You know, so maybe cut down the lands when you're playing on quick draft, because you know they're going to help smooth out a little bit there. No, it was really nice. I think I believe I was playing a Demir deck as well, and it just I had a couple bombs in mine. You know, that kind of helped me over the hump there. I needed the assistance. You know, I'd been kind of struggling in this set. There's too many cool things going on. Actually, I just get really distracted when I'm opening a pack and I see this incredible multiversal legend, and you know, the guys next to me who are kind of in the know are like, "Oh, that's kind of cool, but I think I'm just going to take this meeting of the minds, or I'm going to take this, you know, temporal cleansing over." And just like, wow, you know, what the heck is going on here that they're just taking these commons over and just they're marching over me with their machinery. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just like, bruh, come on, you know, really, you know, you're going to just beat me down. I still had all of these. I still had all these really good rares. And, you know, this dude's just stomping over me with the Inca Drinker, you know. And this is kind of what I always kind of wanted to do with this format. And I thought it was going to be more like that when I first saw. I thought the synergy of the format would work. But really, it's just the card quality. What's the cream rising to the top here? And so we see that, like, in our comments here, you know, Deadly Diversion, Ephemeral's Dispersal, Preening Champion, Eyes of Gataxis, things like that just are better when they're in your deck. They're better when you're in your hand. They're better just for being there. You know, opening hand or not, your deck's going to be better when these cards are there. And so it's kind of interesting to see so many blue cards that just kind of fit in everywhere. I think the archetypes are pretty like loose enough to where you really need to, or the archetypal synergies, I guess I should say, where they're still kind of loosely bound together, where your creativity really takes over, and it's about really the cards that you're playing and how good of the card quality they are. And so you really got to up your evaluations if you kind of want to do really well in this set. There's so many things you can be doing, And there's so many decision trees, but you got to make sure that you're filling your deck with the cards that can really kind of get you over the hump and really kind of give you the best chance to kind of fight off everybody's haymakers. There's just so many cool games that I see, from the FNM when I was watching online, things like that, or even when I'm playing it myself, games that I thought I was just going to completely win, some just over the top kind of haymaker just gets me and just rocks me for the rest of the game. I've lost games where I was at, had my opponent at like 1 life trying to get them down there. I'm at 20, and then somehow they just get this string of just incredible haymakers, and there I am just trying to struggle to survive at that point, and the tides reverse. Likewise, it always happens the other way too. So don't get down on that. Everybody, it's ebbs and flows here. It's really intriguing how good the blue is. One of the last stats I'll share with you this week is actually, it was for the first day, so the 3-0 decks there. We see there was a kind of an interesting mono red player there. I'm sure they had a bunch of volcanic spites and just some crazy haymakers in that deck. I really wish they would have posted that, because that's kind of interesting to see when you see these kind of outliers like that. But you see at the top there, blue-white, that Knights deck is just so strong. Actually, one of the highest win percentage just cards in general. It's actually, I think it's an opening hand, so we would kind of like, this is a Marshall Zephyr, and that's the 2/2 white and blue. Other knights you control get +1/+1, and then for a blue and a white, you get to tap a creature. This guy has an opening hand win rate of 64.1%, and then games when drawn, it's a 61%er, and improvement when drawn to 4.7 as well. So that's pretty nice. But I mean, that's pretty incredible for just an uncommon. And then right underneath it actually is Norn's Inquisitor. So that's where you really see these guys. They're both knights, which is kind of cool, but the Norn's Inquisitor has the incubate mechanic as well. It's pretty crazy how big their opening hand win percentage is, when you start looking at some of these things. And it's kind of cool to see some commons and uncommons up that high. One of the more other cool commons that has that really high win percentage is actually the Preening Champion. And so, again, these blue and white commons, uncommons are really the kind of things that get you there. You're going to have more commons and uncommons in your deck than you are going to have rares or mythics. And so you got to make sure to really support your rares and mythics with these really kind of high quality. And then we see white black underneath there. And then we see blue black with 2 3-0 decks. On the top of these things, I see just quite a bit of blue within these, but then you see down there as well, black red coming up pretty big. That 3-0 3-color deck. There were 2 5-color decks actually. Shout out to those 5-color players. I think Roby and I kind of hit on that last time, that 5-color is probably very viable if you can really prioritize those dual lands in the common slot. It really is kind of probably more dependent on how the magic gods kind of bless those packs and whether or not you roll high on that 50% chance and the other people roll high on that 50% chance that you're going to get one of those dual lands. And so fill your deck with some good cards and set yourself up for some success in that FNM draft or that online draft that you're doing. Well, I think that'll do it for this week.